So this was my first time voting this year, and I never really paid much attention to Bermuda politics before. So it was about a week before we had to, until it was election day, and I realized that I needed to do my research if I wanted to make an informed decision, and I wasn't going to vote based on just because some people told me to vote OBA or people told me to vote PLP. I wanted a reason why. I wanted evidence of why I should be voting for this party and how that party will be helping me and other people in the future. So I went about researching. At first, I was just frustrated with the lack of information that was provided by each of the parties. And through that frustration, I just went and tried to find information for myself. And so I did my research. I looked at each of the parties' platforms. And then just because, you know, I'm a nerd and I like to make these videos, I like to summarize things so that it's easier to understand. I summarized each of the parties' platforms, and then because I'm a visual person, I thought it would be best to show that in terms of a table. So each of the parties' points for each section, like the education, the economy, I divided that, and then I compared each of the points that the party would have side by side, so that it's easy and clear to see what the parties are trying to offer and how I can compare them. I placed it onto Facebook just because I realized that I wasn't the only one that was frustrated from the lack of information, and I thought that other people could benefit from it as well. So I just posted it just because I thought, hey, someone else might find this informative. I didn't think anything of it. And the reaction from the public was shocking and quite frankly overwhelming. I didn't expect all this attention, but honestly, I'm just glad that I was able to help other people be informed while voting, because it seemed like a lot of people were kind of voting just based on the poor information that we were provided from each of the parties, and also pretty much from, you know, what their friends and family are voting for. It seems to run in a family, or according to your friends, which party they support. It's more like supporting a sports team, it seemed like, instead of actually voting for the party that you think will do best for you. And so I'm glad that I was able to help people make that uninformed decision and have that information for them. So the positive responses were great from the majority of people. They were all very grateful for that I'd taken the time to do this. And so I was really just to help out. I was really happy to help out my fellow Bermudians, really just to help them stay informed. And the responses from some of the candidates were probably the most shocking, but also the coolest. I think the fact that the premier messaged me on Facebook, or a former premier at least, who messaged me on Facebook, when he did that, I was really shocked. But I thought it was really nice of him to do that, because he really only did that to clarify some of the concerns I had and some of the criticisms I had for the OBA's platform. And I think the best thing that came out of that is that he ended up inviting me to discuss in person some of the concerns I had. And because I already had a YouTube channel where I posted some films that I make just for fun, I figured, what better way to show other people what his responses are than YouTube, especially nowadays where YouTube is on the rise in terms of being kind of like a news outlet, and people are easily able to share information via YouTube. And I think that's also where a lot of the younger generations are looking as well. So I utilized my YouTube channel. I asked the premier if he wouldn't mind being doing a video interview for my channel, and he agreed. So I was able to make a video based on him and his responses to my concerns with the OBA's platform. And then I ended up thinking, well, it's only fair that I get a representative from the PLP responding as well. And so I reached out to them. The candidate that was representing the PLP for my constituency ended up coming over to my house, and I interviewed her, and we talked about some of the concerns I had. I posted that, and then I was also the Minister of National Security, Jeff Barron, reached out to me as well to talk about some of the concerns I had for law enforcement. So it kind of all just like happened in a way that I was able to make all these videos and I share them so that people are informed, because that was my main goal. Is like I'm not satisfied with the information provided, and I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. So let me just get this information and provide it for some people, because I know it helped me, and I'm sure it'll help some others. The negative responses were to a minimum, for sure. The majority, they weren't really that bad. I think really it was just people that were still trying to tell me who to vote for, which was the exact opposite of what I was trying to do. I was trying to get everyone involved and collaboratively sharing evidence and sources to help us all be informed and make our own decisions for ourselves. So when people were messaging me, telling me, you should be voting for OBA, you should be voting for PLP, and some of them were like, you should be voting for them because of this reason and that reason. I'm like, okay, but where's your evidence? And it was more just, it wasn't a bad response. It was more like, it was just annoying to see that people still didn't quite grasp what I was trying to do, and the whole concept in general of critical thinking. I don't want you to tell me what to think. I want you to give me evidence and some information so I can decide for myself what I want to think.
And I understand that this experience has ignited new career prospects.
Yeah, so I ended up being a student reporter for the election night, along with some other students, and we were all each assigned a polling station to go and report activity that was happening there, also to meet some of the candidates, and we had to stay there all night to finally get a vote count, so that we can send it to the Royal Gazette, and that information will be in the post-election Royal Gazette issue. And that experience really showed me what journalism could be like. Journalism really wasn't a career that I had considered before this, but I think it's mainly because I didn't really understand exactly what it was. Honestly, English was a subject that I wasn't that strong at school, and so I never really considered journalism until I actually got to experience it. And I think that's one of the things that I realized that I've learned, is that experiencing being in a career or a certain job position is way more valuable than just learning about it. Because I realized that it's something that I really enjoy doing, is researching and helping people be informed so that they can be mindful when making decisions like voting for the next political party. So I really enjoyed that experience, and I realized that journalism it's an art, and it's very influential, and I would love to employ it in my career in mental health, because I feel that journalism can really help to remove a lot of the stigma that is attached to mental health that is still quite prevalent on the island.
What are your interests in mental health?
I would say that originally, so I studied I studied psychology for my undergrad at the University of Western Ontario. Originally, my interest in psychology came from studying a subject in my International Baccalaureate program called Peace and Conflict Studies, where we learned all the theories related to why there's conflict in the world in general, and why peace is something that seems so hard to achieve. And one of the things that stuck with me the most is that a lot of it has to do with human psychology. Why can't humans coexist peacefully? And so that's where my interest in psychology was ignited. The mental health aspect, I was more interested in that when I started to study some of the gang violence that's happening in Bermuda. So we were learning about group psychology and how the difference between some people's psyche and the way that they think, the way that they behave, and their emotions plays a huge role in how they will behave, and whether or not it will be a violent behavior or whether it would be quite peaceful. And I really wanted to do a research project on gang violence in Bermuda and where human psychology plays a role in it. Unfortunately, I was unable to do that because there's actually there's a big lack of information on that in Bermuda. There aren't that many sources that give you evidence, and of course, when you're doing a research project, you have to have credible sources to give you evidence. You can't just say something. There has to be evidence for it. So I wasn't able to go ahead with that research project, but that's what first got me interested in mental health, because I realized that the majority of the youth that are involved in gangs are as a result of different mental health issues, whether it be anxiety, whether it be a poor emotional attachment to family members. It was a huge range of things that I thought was fascinating. And then in my own experience at university, a lot of people had issues with mental health, whether it be anxiety, stress, seasonal affective disorder, and a lot of these things were not taken seriously or were not considered a priority. And from my experience and from watching a lot of my fellow classmates and friends suffer, I realized that this is something that it's about time for a change. And I find that in Bermuda, the stigma is even worse. A lot of people believe that, hey, if you're depressed, go talk to your pastor about it, and that's all, which I think can help for sure. But there are some people where they're not neurotypical, where all they need to do is to talk to somebody about it. Some people, they need medication, and you can't just pray anxiety away. Some people might find that useful, and sometimes I think it is, but that's not for everybody. Sometimes you need clinical treatment. And so I'm really hoping that through the power of journalism, I'll be able to be a mental health activist and help reduce the stigma surrounding mental health in Bermuda.
So you're heading off to uni.
Yes.
In fall, and you're about to begin a 2-week internship at the Royal Gazette.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a really good question. I think that it's a question that is quite sensitive for a lot of early 20-year-olds. However, I see myself working as a mental health care professional as well as a mental health activist. One of the things that I really want to do is one of my career goals is to make getting help for your mental health normal, to make it culturally acceptable, to make it something that's cool. People are like, oh yeah, I'm going to go get a checkup, just to go to the doctor. Physical health is quite normal. It's normal to take care of your physical health, but it's not like cool to take care of your mental health. Self-care is kind of like a luxury, which it is for a lot of people because it is quite expensive to get mental health treatment in Bermuda. But I want to change the culture where it's a priority for all of us, because I think that it needs to be, and I think that it's the 21st century now, and it's time that we start taking our mental health seriously. So I in 5 years, I hope to have hopefully finished my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I hope that I will have done a lot of publications on how we can reduce the stigma, and I hope to have maybe even gotten involved in the political side of making it something that the government is held accountable for, is making sure that our citizens are healthy mentally.